Hello everyone, I've got another Jane Eyre Odds and Ends video for you today. I know I just did one of these in December and I thought that was going to be it, but a few more things have come up that I wanted to mention. First, I have some sad news to share. One of my viewers informed me last month that Michael Jaston had passed away on February 5th. He was 88 years young, but that doesn't diminish the loss for all the Jane Eyre fans who love his interpretation of Mr. Rochester in the 1973 miniseries. I had just talked about his interview with his co-star Sirica Cusack celebrating the adaptation's 50th anniversary in my last Jane Eyre video, so this was shocking news and immediately my heart went out to his devoted fans. When I was on Facebook, I got to know some members of the Jane Eyre Files group, many of whom had met Jaston and talked to him. And if you heard that interview, you know how amused and touched he was that he had this devoted fan club that was still growing after so many years. Yet by all accounts, he was lovely and gracious when approached, and he made himself available for interviews to share memories whenever he could. His passing was unexpected, and I know many loyal fans will miss him dearly. Second, I'm going to do a little book review of The Eyre Affair by Jasper Fforde. Through some trial and error over the past few years, I have learned that I really don't care for Jane Eyre adjacent books. I have read a couple that were underwhelming, to say the least, that I didn't really like, and others I hated so much that I stopped reading them partway through. I was going to say that I threw them across the room, but I don't think that I actually did that. I haven't done that in a long time, but I was really not happy. The thing is, I love Jane Eyre just the way it is. I don't want anything added to it. I don't want someone else's modern take on the characters' backstories. I don't have a longing for a sequel. I'm not interested in retellings. I definitely don't want anything that would make Charlotte Bronte roll in her grave. And there's a lot of garbage out there. There's even some garbage that is very highly regarded, and I want nothing to do with it. All that said, I do make an exception for The Eyre Affair by Jasper Fforde, and I think it works for me because it's not a prequel or a sequel or anything like that. I first encountered The Eyre Affair, which is the first book in the Thursday Next series, when I was in high school, and I became completely enamored of it. It was brilliant and funny, and it introduced me to this wonderful concept of book jumping, whereby people are able to enter a work of literature and interact with the characters. It just blew my mind. I read it several times, and then every year I would ask for the latest book in the series for Christmas, so I've got the whole set right here. Let's see if I can manage to... Nope, can't quite get that. I've got the whole set here of the books. There they all are. And I've read most of them multiple times. And then I've also got the... Whoop! Oh, I didn't realize that I had stuff stacked on top of it. This was not a good idea. I've also got the first two books in the nursery crime series, and I enjoyed those a lot. And I've also got... Come on out. Not a good idea at all. I've also got Shades of Grey, which was a third series that he started that I got into. So, quite a collection. I'm not going to try to put these all back right now while I'm filming. I'll wait until I'm done. For a while there, Jasper Fforde, or Fforde, as I affectionately called him, was one of my favorite writers. And then something changed. The last two books in the Thursday Next series kind of stunk. And then he was focusing his attention on another series that I just wasn't interested in. And then, despite many teasers, he never delivered on his promise of sequels for the other two series, which had left readers on a cliffhanger. It was frustrating. Now, years have gone by, and I don't think any of those books are ever going to come out, and I just feel like... Well, honestly, I have a theory that he was trolling his readers, and I gotta give him props for being bold enough to do that, but it's kind of obnoxious, and it kind of seems like career suicide. He was very successful at this. The books were doing well. The new series, I think, were doing well. People were hungry for more, and he just shut it off, and it doesn't make any sense to me. Consequently, I stopped rereading the books. Now, I didn't just stop rereading the books because I was upset about this or anything. I just kind of moved on, as one does. But I did also start to have kind of a funny taste in my mouth regarding the whole thing. So it's been quite a while since I last ventured through the Eyre Affair, so long that there was a lot I had forgotten. Set in the mid-1980s, the Eyre Affair follows a heroine named Thursday Next, who is a literary detective in an alternate history version of England. Thursday is tough, she's smart, she's got trauma, she's got love troubles, she also holds Jane Eyre in high esteem. The series is hard to place in any one genre. It's got fantasy, science fiction, supernatural elements, time stuff. It's kind of dystopian. There is heavy commentary on a 130-year war that's being fought with Russia over the Crimean Peninsula. There's a giant corporation called Goliath that's infringing on the government. It's got action and crime and murder and mystery and all kinds of stuff like that, but then there are dramatic moments, and then there are farcical situations involving characters with the most absurd names. So it's all over the place. Chiefly, it caters to book nerds. It is loaded with literary references, and that got even more intense as the series went on. There are several tangential discussions about the authorship of Shakespeare's plays. I was actually surprised this time to realize just how much of the book is amusing filler and world building. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's wildly creative. It shows off what a crazy imagination Fforde has. But I have to say, a tangent is a tangent, and the book has plenty of quirky but irrelevant details and anecdotes. It does manage to clock in at only 374 pages, though, so I wouldn't call it bloated, and it's fun to read. As for what it has to do with Jane Eyre, in this alternative, surrealist universe, Jane Eyre is still a very popular novel, but everyone reluctantly agrees that the ending stinks. Instead of Jane and Rochester reuniting and having their happy ever after moment, the novel ends with Jane going to India as St. John River's assistant, an anticlimactic conclusion that no one likes. It's then revealed early on that as a child, Thursday Next once crossed the barrier into fiction and entered the book herself, encountering the main characters and altering the circumstances of their first meeting. She's also had interactions in the real world with Mr. Rochester, who apparently is able to cross over to our side. Throw in something called a prose portal and a master criminal threatening to hold famous literary characters for ransom, and you have some pretty zany goings-on. I used to consider this one of my favorite books. I don't think that I would say that now. I still think it's great, but I'm more cognizant of some of its flaws. In a way, I'm going off of memory here, but I think I liked the second and third books even better because they are steeped in the book world, whereas for the most part, this introduces the concept. I'm not sure the book is for everyone. The multi-genre sprawl is both a blessing and a curse. You might love the literary allusions and the sense of humor, but not care for the corporate overlord stuff or the alternate universe stuff. It can also be confusing or overwhelming because there's so much to take in. You're just dumped into this world and there's a lot you have to absorb. That's part of the reason why I reread it so many times. I should also let you know that the name of one of the main characters is a swear. This generates some humor, kind of the low-hanging fruit variety, but it also means that you end up saying the word in your head whenever the character shows up or is referred to. And I know if you're someone who doesn't swear, doesn't want to swear, this can be kind of touchy. I could also say that there are a couple instances where Fforde through Thursday summarizes the plot of Jane Eyre and gets some details wrong. But I also feel like that's nitpicking. For Jane Eyre aficionados, it's definitely got some special treats, primarily in the first part and in the last 100 pages. That's where that part of it really takes off. Generally speaking, though I don't care for things that mess around with Jane Eyre, I really appreciate this. Third, I wanted to share some comments on a few live theatrical productions of Jane Eyre that are on YouTube. I have avoided talking about these videos because, well, I don't know what to do with them. If they're amateur productions put on by a high school or a college, it doesn't feel right to critique them. And if they are professional productions, chances are the whole show isn't available, and it doesn't seem right to critique something that's incomplete. But I will throw out a few mentions. Most of what's out there are taped productions of the most famous Jane Eyre musical, the one with music and lyrics by Paul Gordon and book by John Caird. I have already done 3 videos on this musical, talking about the Broadway recording, the Toronto recording, and the Austrian recording. There is still no official footage from the Broadway run on YouTube, just dark bootlegs, but there are several amateur productions that you can watch if you want to see and hear the whole show. There's a decent college production from the Cronton College's Center of Excellence that's been posted by Lauren Heger. This version has some unique staging, including a few moments of interpretive dancing. Wasn't so into that, but what's far more important is that most of the singers are pretty good. Seeing Rochester played by such a young man is a little weird, and he's kinda handsy with Jane, but she's very good, and the two of them have got good, strong voices, and they're properly mic'd, so you can hear them over the piano, which is hammering away through the whole show. You can barely make out the other instruments in the orchestra pit. It sounds like there are 2 people there. The music is a little rushed at times, but I would rather it be too fast than too slow, and despite some unfortunate moments where things get off-key, I found some numbers a pleasure to listen to. There's a production from 2008, BCHS is the only info I have, posted by Nicole Patras, and it's pretty good too. Jane and Rochester both are wearing red, and I thought that was a terrible choice, but they both have nice voices. Both of them look and sound like adults instead of high school students, so this might be a community effort staged by the high school, or they just have mature voices, which is certainly possible. The acting is a bit stiff. I'd say it's in line with what you would expect from a high school amateur community production. I think they could have used a little more direction about what to do with their hands and how to own the stage, but for what it is, it's fine. The orchestra was good, the duets in this one sounded better than in the last one, and Rochester did a splendid job with the gypsy. I think I got the most enjoyment watching clips of a Japanese production from, I believe, 2009. It's really good, it's professionally filmed. The editing and camera transitions are a bit intense, they're a little overdone, but the main performers are great. It's Takako Matsu playing Jane and Satoshi Hashimoto playing Rochester. Both are professional actors. Like with the German language version, the show translated into Japanese has to cram a lot more syllables in, which can make the somewhat unwieldy lyrics even harder to handle, but they manage! There's also some nice staging and costuming, full orchestrations, and more developed backdrops than I've seen in some other versions of this play. It's well sung and well acted, and I'm tempted to say this is the best filmed production of this musical I have seen. Unfortunately, it's only available in segments, but most of the prominent numbers are up on YouTube, the clips posted by a user called HelvaNH834. But if you don't like the Paul Gordon musical, you're probably not going to like any of those productions. Fortunately, there are other musicals out there. I've sampled a couple. They didn't really catch my fancy, but one of the better ones can be found on the Stagescripts Limited channel. They filmed the 2013 premiere of this show, which has music, book, and lyrics by Jay Richards. Thank you to Kayla for reminding me about this. It turns out I had watched more than half of it before, but something came up and I had to stop partway through to do something else, and I never got back to it. It's been sitting in my Watch Later playlist for all this time. This adaptation has a slowish start. Well, a lot of them have a slow start, but this one seemed especially slow. But it pulled me in on the strength of its lead actress. I thought she was great. She's got a pretty voice, a very clear soprano. I like that she's not just wearing black all the time and disappearing into the background. And I thought she did a wonderful job acting the part. I really felt drawn to her version of the character. She and Rochester were very good together. He's kind of at the start, but he grew on me the way he's supposed to. There's a sweetness in their interactions with tentative optimism on his part, and they get to have some playful moments, which adaptations don't always include. They don't always make time for that, and I'm always disappointed because that's one of my favorite things. The plot does make some significant jumps and changes, but as far as the main narrative is concerned, it covers all the bases just fine. What I didn't like was all the added material with the servants of Thornfield, especially the dance routines, which felt so out of place. Most of the songs in this musical are slower tempo ballads, and that works, it fits. But then there are these bouncy ensemble numbers, and they just sound goofy. In another show it would be fine, but I don't think it works here in Jane Eyre, in a Jane Eyre that otherwise plays everything straight. Brocklehurst and Grace Poole should not have songs that sound so silly and have such exuberant choreography. Still, the composition of the songs themselves is fine, and for the most part, I enjoyed the show. There were even a couple moments that brought a tear to my eye. Let's throw one more production in for good measure. I watched a live adaptation done by BCHS in 2005. This video was posted by a user named Katie Alley. This one is just a play, not a musical, and I found it hard to believe it was just a high school production. I thought the girl playing Jane did a very good job. I assume that she's 17 or 18 years old. That makes her the correct age to play Jane Eyre, yet she seems older. But that actually works in her favor, because I think Jane Eyre is far more mature than most 18-year-olds tend to be nowadays. I also like this Rochester. Although he does not look the part at all, His acting is superior for this level of production, and I appreciate that he really threw himself into it. They did a nice job adapting so much material while still abridging it to keep it 2 hours long. This does lead to some strange creative choices. For example, the gypsy scene, which goes very well, is cut off by the attack on Mason, which is shown happening simultaneously. I didn't necessarily have a problem with this, but having the whole Mason thing happening at a different part of the stage distracted my attention from the gypsy scene, which I was really enjoying. I also found the tail end of the proposal a little weak. I think Jane accepts too quickly, this second part of it moves too fast. But it stuck out to me because I was really enjoying it up to that point. I think Jane, this actress playing Jane, does a great job with the dialogue in that part, which is so pivotal. But again, I only mention that because I was really having a good time, and then all of a sudden it was like, meh. But in general, I thought this was a very good, engaging, non-musical stage adaptation. All of these videos can currently be found on YouTube, and I encourage you to check them out if they sound of interest to you. And I really do think that I have now covered everything I wanted to cover. I have had doing a review of the Eyre Affair on my list for several years now, so I'm glad to have that done, and I don't think there are any other Jane Eyre books that I want to talk about. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know your thoughts on anything that I discussed here in the comments below, and I would like to express my appreciation to 2 groups of people. First, those of you who clicked on this video and watched it even though you have never read Jane Eyre, you don't know anything about Jane Eyre, you haven't watched any adaptations, and you really don't care, you just wanted to watch the video. That's much appreciated. Also, the other group, those of you who started watching just because you like the Jane Eyre content on this channel, and you stick around for that through all the other stuff I post that you don't have any interest in. That is much appreciated as well. I'll be back next week. Thanks for watching.